I am so excited to have you here. We are about to embark on a mystical and magical adventure with one of your inner children. And before we get into it, I'm going to explain how this type of healing works within your field. So I know that I said this is a guided meditation, and it kind of is, but it's more of a soul retrieval. So we're going to talk about what those are if it's your first time hearing that term. Before I went to channel this whole message and go on the experience with your inner child, I sat and asked everyone's higher self out in the cosmos, in the ethers, if they would like to come forward and experience this journey together. And so this is putting a ping out to your higher self and other people's higher selves and their inner children, obviously. And we are finding commonalities in the collective consciousness. So this is you connecting in the astral with soul family, persons who are very like-minded and on similar paths. So even though this is a group reading for many people, it is still going to resonate very deeply because you heard the ping. You heard your higher self say, hey, this is for you. And then I go into the collective, the group of persons who's receiving this, their Akashic records, and retrieve this channeled message, activation, this upgrade in your field. Now, our mind, our human psyche, works really well with narratives, metaphors, analogies. So that is the type of storytelling that we are about to experience with one another. And there are going to be a lot of messages that I'm going to interpret. But then in your own experience, in your own time, there are also going to be additional downloads and insights that come in that are up to you to decipher as well. This is not me giving you homework. This is more me saying, hey, we're going to have additional things open up in our awareness moving forward after this activation. So just giving you a heads up. Let's go ahead and get into it. When I went into your energy field, I heard this song playing, and I'm gonna play it for you here. I looked at your inner child and said, oh, do you want to go to the beach? Is that why you were playing the song? And they said, yes. We put on these full bodysuits like that you see surfers wear and grabbed boogie boards and headed out into the ocean. And neither of us knew how to surf. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna hold you up and you're gonna hold me up. And so we had our two boogie boards next to one another, and I was holding onto their hands and we were like wobbling back and forth, and then we both fell into the water. We were splashing around and laughing. It was really funny. And your inner child looked up into the sky and it said, ooh, look at all those seagulls. There was a whole bunch of them flying everywhere, and one of them swooped down out of the sky and dropped a message in a bottle into your inner child's hand, kind of like you see in the movies where they wash up on the shore and you pick it up. Well, the seagull was our messenger today. I did also ask your inner child how old they were, because sometimes that's an important key piece to think about what was going on in my life during this time period in relation to the messages that we're going to be receiving. And they told me that they were 10 years old. And your inner child was looking at the bottle. I said, ooh, who is that from? And they popped the top off, and inside there was a scroll of paper, and when they undid it, there was a iridescent butterfly that was on the paper. How beautiful. And I said, oh, it looks like one of those temporary tattoos that you can get. Your inner child said, well, what do we do with it? And I asked, well, what do you think we do with it? And they said, oh, well, we have a whole bunch of water here, you know, because we were in the ocean. We can put it on. And I said, that's a great idea. So we took the temporary tattoo with the butterfly and put it on your arm right here, and then took some salt water and put it on and waited for it to adhere. As soon as we took the patch off, me and your inner child turned into butterflies and were fluttering around in this field. So we transported to a different location, and a really beautiful butterfly. So it's very sweet. And this song started playing.
Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high. Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow. I can go anywhere.
afterwards, we pop back into being humans, into this field, and your inner child was saying, "Oh, what should we do now?" And I said, "Oh, I think that it was giving us instructions. We need to take a look inside a book." I said, "Why don't you close your eyes and ask your soul where we can find it?" Your inner child said, "Oh, it's in the Hall of Mirrors, but there is a snake guarding it." So the Hall of Mirrors, where I have seen in people's Akashic fields, are often representative of accessing different timelines, like different past lives or different dimensional spaces. They're basically portals into other places. But there was a snake guarding this one specifically. And I asked, "Why is the snake guarding it?" And they said, "I'm not sure. Let's go see." I asked, "Well, how do we get there?" The Hall of Mirrors, because I wasn't really seeing an access point from where we were. This is when your inner child looked over. There was a car, if you will, but it was shaped like a hamburger. And for reference, this is one from SpongeBob. Obviously SpongeBob and Patrick weren't there. It was me and your inner child. It looked like this. So we climbed in, and there was bubbles that were coming out of the exhaust pipe in the back, and that was fueling the hamburger car. And so we're floating off into the sky. And in my life right now, currently, there's some construction that is going on outside of my apartment complex. And while me and your inner child were in this hamburger car, they were using like a jackhammer, and it was making the ground shake. And so we could feel that while we were in the meditation. I was like, "Oh, watch out, we've got some turbulence." Then we kind of leveled out and we looked over, and there were pelicans that were flying, but they looked like pickles with pelican wings and a beak, and your inner child thought it was hilarious. Then as we're flying, a giant mirror appeared in the sky, as big as you can envision, massive mirror. I was like, "Okay, well, I guess that's where we're supposed to go." And so we're flying towards it, and we go inside, and the car kind of disappears, and me and your inner child are walking barefoot in this really big, open, expansive space that is pitch black. However, there was all of these really beautiful stars up above us, and so we could see where we were going. As we're walking kind of into the center of the room, all of these mirrors started to appear almost like when you go to a mirror maze, but they were kind of freestanding, and they were creating this giant circle of mirrors around us. Your inner child looked at me and said, "Well, what do we do now?" And I said, "Well, we were looking for a book." "Oh yeah, where is that snake?" Because we didn't see it upon walking in, but we thought that we were going to. And this is when, from behind one of the mirrors, a teeny tiny snake, super tiny, started squiggling towards us. And your inner child said, "Are you the snake that's guarding this place?" And we didn't hear anything. Your inner child went, "I can't hear you," with their ear. And we shrunk down very teeny so we could see the snake face to face. Your inner child said, "We are looking for a book. Can you help us?" And the snake turned towards a different mirror, and we started to follow it. Now at this point, we're like the size of marbles on the floor, and this is a massive room. So we're thinking, this is going to take quite a while for us to traverse the plains of this floor in the size that we are to get to the mirror across the room. And I asked your inner child, "Do you want to get big again, or do you want to stay this size?" And they said, "Well, let's just see what happens." While we're teeny tiny. I said, "I love that, going with the flow." We eventually reached the mirror on the other side, and we asked, "Is this the one that we're supposed to go into?" And the snake turned and looked at it, kind of gesturing us to go inside. And your inner child asked the snake, "Would you like to come with us?" The snake coiled around their leg, like near their ankle. And your inner child looked down and said, "Hey, you're gonna get squished if you stay down there," because you know, like when your legs walk. And they said, "Why don't you come up here?" And the snake crawled up and went around your arm. When we walked through the mirror, we were inside of a library that was inside of a tree, and all of the bookshelves were also made of the tree, so they were kind of protruding out to create shelves that the books were sitting upon. Your inner child looked around and said, "Are these all magical books?" And they could tell that they were, filled with wonder. I said, yeah, let's look around and see if we can find the book that was calling to you, because the book has its own consciousness and there is a reason that we were going in to retrieve it today. This was so funny. Your inner child said, here boy, come on, where are you? like you would be calling a dog or like a puppy. Here boy. And then this book came out, was like waddling towards us, and your inner child said, oh, there you are. When your inner child picked up the book, the title said Incantations. Incantations. And they asked, what does that mean? And I said, it is a magical formula, spell, or charm, often spoken, sung, or chanted, and it is intended to produce a special magical effect. So again, an incantation, because this is important, okay? An incantation is a magical formula, spell, or charm, often spoken, sung, or chanted, intended to produce a specific magical effect. And your inner child said, ooh, let's see what's inside, and opened it. And on the left-hand side of the book, there was a page that said 23 in the top left corner. Your inner child said, getting ready to read what was on the page. And it said, in order to find the wizard, one must proclaim, I am thee. Only then will one's true nature be revealed. I'm going to say it again. In order to find the wizard, one must proclaim, I am thee. Only then will one's true nature be revealed. I said, ooh, do you want to try it? And your inner child said, yes. They held out their arms. You can't see them on the screen. They held out their arms and said, I am thee. And then they opened them back up and said, nothing happened. I said, are you sure? And I wheeled out this giant mirror. Mirrors everywhere. I wheeled it out and said, what do you see? And when your inner child looked into it, you had all of these wizard robes on. You were looking very elegant and whimsical. I said, the mirror reveals your true nature. Said, grab your spell book because you're going to need that to study. Said, this is mine. And I said, yes, that is your book. I told them there are a lot of things that you are going to remember now. And your inner child looked at me and said, like what? I told them, you were the one that took us on this journey today. And they looked at me and said, me? I said, yes, you. This was not a product of mine, Sage's magic. This is all you. I'm here to guide us and to tell your adult about this journey through the channeling and the reiteration, but it is your magic that led us on this adventure and got us here. Your inner child looked in the mirror again with all the robes on your enchantment book and said, wow, I really am magic. And I said, yeah, of course you are. You are a wizard. And your inner child like grabbed the book next to their chest and said, eee! You know, like kids get really excited and squealing. And then I pointed at their arm and I said, guess who that is? Talking about the snake that was coiled around your arm. That is one of your familiars, and they have been waiting for your return. And you know how snakes like take their tongue, they're like, it was giving your inner child a kiss. And like a long lost friend, if you will. And your inner child said, I am so happy I remember. And I said, me too. Now, this book of enchantments was already in your Akashic field. We were going in to retrieve it and also activate the wizard template within, because that is how you created this book in the first place. It's your grimoire, if you will. It is different spells and energetic encodements and rituals that you have held in your aura and in your travels, your adventures throughout multitudes of lifetimes. It's a record that you have been keeping specifically to wield with your wizard archetype. And so we were doing a double activation today. So this is what I was talking about in the beginning, where there's going to be an unfoldment of new insights and downloads. We simply looked at page 23 today, but there are lots of different pages in there. And so it's going to be multitudes of activations that unlock within during this incarnation. This is also a really great way to embrace one's magic with confidence, because oftentimes when we are talking about etheric and astral travels, there can be a little of anxiety that comes up, specifically with inner children, because of just rhetoric in social media and movies and what have you. So we wanted to take them on a very silly goose fun journey. As seen with all of the symbolism at the beginning, and so that we are associating magic and astral and etheric travels with really fun experiences. So they're going to be more open to having these with you in the future, and however you choose to do that, meditations, activations, upgrades, they are going to feel a lot more confident in embracing and expressing their unique magic. And now even specifically more so with incantations and being a wizard. I would love to hear in the comments if anything really stuck out to you, if it was a synchronicity. For example, hearing the Beach Boys song and then going to the beach, getting in the hamburger car, meeting your snake familiar, going to the tree library, or hearing the Reading Rainbow song, or any other ones that really resonated with your soul. If you really enjoyed this experience, which I did with your inner child, it was great. Thank you for inviting me to come along on this journey with you. If you really love this, I want to tell you about something that I have coming up that I am so incredibly excited about. It is called the Spiritual Gift Activation Course, and what this is going to look like is much like when we went on the shamanic journey this time together. It is going to be a reiteration of that. However, this time we are going to be connecting with the unicorn, dragon, mermaid, elf, fairy, phoenix, and tree spirit. So 7 magical creatures, magical beings. You are going to receive a new spiritual gift from each one of them. They are going to unlock within your Akashic records, and not only are they going to be personal gifts for you to use, and I'm also going to explain how to develop them, because that's another piece of it as well. Okay, now I have this, now what do I do with it? We'll talk about how to develop it, but it is also going to open up the lines of communication so that you can channel from these magical beings and creatures and receive their insights, downloads, and wisdom, and enhance their role on your spirit team during this incarnation. It can also help you remember if you've had past life connections with them, worked with them in different capacities, like if you're the wizard, what journeys you have been on. It is going to be such an incredibly fun experience. I'm going to include descriptions of each one of these archetypes and pictures and music to really help them come to life, and for you to be able to embody their magic and their medicine. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be much like the one that we did today, but more specific with spiritual gifts. And discovering how we can work with them during this lifetime. So if you would like to sign up for this, you can find it in my bio or in the comments down here below. And again, I want to thank you so much for inviting me to be your sparkly fairy guide on this journey. It was a pleasure and an honor meeting your inner children. They were super lovely. I am wishing you the most magical day, and I will see you next time.